Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. We are discussing a very hot topic today, the difference between surrender and resistance. When spiritual teachers ask people to surrender to divinity, it often creates great confusion. Do I just sit and wait for life to happen? If I'm supposed to do things, how am I supposed to surrender at the same time? This is probably why so many recommend reading the Bhagavad Gita, because the core principle being expounded by the book is how to do your duty and leave the rest to God. However, in my mind, I like a Tibetan proverb the most. It says, "Give me the courage to change what I can, the serenity to accept what I cannot, and the wisdom to tell the difference." Surrender is about doing the right thing rather than chasing desires, and also making peace with the consequences of those right actions. So if you're a married man and another woman is throwing herself at you, surrender does not mean that you have an extramarital affair. Surrender means cutting ties with her and dealing with the possible pain of the end of that relationship, no matter how painful it is. This is where it can get the most confusing, because it can feel as if life is pushing us to do what we know already is a violation of the trust of our loved ones, the violation of our principles, the violation of basic ethics, or even basic humanity. And if we go with the flow, thinking, of course, life wants me to do this, the truth is no, it doesn't. In either case, you'll be left to face the consequences. And if you're really on the spiritual pathway, the consequences of such a violation is rarely ever pretty. Now, we arrive at the next question. What if we are mistaken about the right thing to do? For example, you think that a person is embezzling from the company and you report him, only to realize a few years later that you were wrong and you ruined a perfectly innocent man's life. Mistakes do happen, and our ideas of what is right is not always correct, but that is very much part of the learning process. The more we stick to the pathway, the more we persist with our daily practice, the more powerful our inner guidance becomes, and we can become more and more familiar with that feeling of inner ease which happens when we are acting in the flow of life rather than asserting our limited will. Now, the word will brings me to another popular question. How much of this is free will and how much of it is surrender to destiny? The simple answer is, you have the free will to surrender to destiny, more or less. Because Unless it is your destiny to be on the spiritual pathway, you will not be investigating surrender in the first place. Surrender is simply the practice of doing what is right in this moment. When you do what is right, you optimize your body, your mind, your relationship, and your life, so you have the free will to surrender to infinite divine will and live life in the best way possible. Or you can choose to be driven by your limited mind and create possibilities far less interesting than the ones planned for you. Personally, I do not believe that the limited individual can surpass the transcendental divine plan. However, I'd like to clarify something here. Our life plan isn't always the smartest one because on a soul level, we are still often driven by our desires. And we can choose great suffering or repetitive patterns because we haven't learned those lessons yet. Even in this case, surrender will bring us to the best case scenario, but that can be significantly harder because we have to fight lifetimes of programming to get there. You know you are in surrender if you are at peace, even when there is great suffering. You know you are in surrender when you are forced to do something you don't like, but it's okay. You know you are in surrender when you badly want to do something or many things, and for whatever reason, that or any action is not possible. And that's okay too. People imagine that surrender is only external, and this is probably one of the biggest illusions and challenges for people on the pathway. We can make peace with some unpleasant external circumstances. This is good. It is a sign of maturity. Other times, external things can leave us feeling very upset, or worse, it can trigger a biological reaction like anxiety, which might not even make sense. This becomes very difficult to handle because we feel we are not in surrender. But surrender isn't just about giving in to the external environment. Make peace with the internal environment as well. Doesn't mean we go around shouting when we're angry. Actually, when we're in surrender to our own anger, there is no need to try to change the world by shouting at them. When there is surrender in moments of anger, shouting will only happen by conscious choice. If it is really necessary in that moment to shout, because peaceful resolution is really impossible. If you are practicing Reiki, you probably didn't even need to listen to this talk. Twice a day Reiki makes surrender almost automatic, and I've seen people going through the most disturbing internal and external life situations, sailing through it knowing that even when everything is flying up in the storm, there is something inside that is untouched and unaffected. And that makes all the difference. EFT also helps in the same direction, so use both these tools. I hope that brought some clarity, and I hope you enjoyed listening. Thanks for joining. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.